Hi everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be showing you how I make kimchi, which is a Korean side dish made with Napa cabbage. I lived in Korea for 3 years. I was working as a school teacher, and I literally ate kimchi every day while I was in Korea. It's served with every Korean dish, and it's considered the national dish of Korea. Right now I'm removing some loose cabbage leaves and placing them in my wok. I'm not going to be cooking them. This is just the biggest container that I have right now. So what I'm going to do now is cut the kimchi into quarters. I'm cutting along the base of the cabbage, and I'm gently going to split the two halves apart. I think this kimchi or this cabbage makes a really nice crinkly sound. I hope you enjoy it too. Now that I have the two halves, I'm going to cut them again at the base, and so we will have 4 quarters of the Napa cabbage. So kimchi is fermented, and when I first encountered this I thought it was very strange. It didn't sound very appetizing to me, and I admit that maybe the first year I was in Korea I did not enjoy kimchi very much. But I realized that kimchi is kind of like wine. You know, you get some really amazing wine, and then some batches are just not tasty at all. So, and if you encounter really well-made, delicious kimchi, it is so tasty, and you get kind of addicted to it. Towards the end of my time in Korea, I was totally addicted to kimchi and asking my coworkers for their recipes, and I still make my own kimchi today. So now I'm just quartering the second cabbage, and I'm also placing them in my wok. The next step is going to be to wash the cabbage. So let's just get them all nice together, and they look really buoyant and very fresh. So now I'm running the cabbage leaves under the tap. We are going to salt the cabbage, so if the leaves are wet, the salt sticks to the leaves much better. So make sure to get them nice and soaked, and then drain off the water. Here I've measured out a 1/4 cup of salt, and that may seem like a lot of salt to you, but after the cabbage has been soaking in the salt for 3 hours, we will wash off all of the salt. And I'm using kosher salt, and this will give you a much better result than using regular table salt. I'm sprinkling the salt in between each of the cabbage leaves and making sure to get plenty of salt near the stems, since this is where the cabbage is thicker and it requires more salt to soften the cabbage. Here I put half of my cabbage leaves into a different pot, since I was running a bit short on space. Alright, once you've salted the cabbage, it needs to sit for about 3 hours. And while you're waiting, we can start preparing the other ingredients: carrots, daikon radish, and green onion. I'm going to start with the carrots, so let me take them out of the bag. I'm using 2 pretty large carrots. And now I'm going to peel them, prepare them and peel them, first chopping off the ends and then the base. I always peel my carrots this way. I do like one half first, and when I'm done I flip it over and I do the other half. I did the same thing to the other carrots, and now I'm going to chop them diagonally like this, and I'm trying to cut them as thinly as I can. When doing this step, please do mind your fingers. I curl the fingers of my left hand so that the knife runs along my nails and not my fingers. Here I'm just arranging the carrots a little bit so that it's easier to cut into thin matchsticks. And again, I'm trying to cut them as thinly as I can. And take your time with this step and be mindful of your fingers. I'm placing the carrots into a bowl that we'll use for later, and I'm doing the same with the other carrots, just cutting them very finely and putting them into the bowl. Now I'm moving on to the Daikon Radish. You can find this at your local Asian grocery store, hopefully. If you can't find Daikon Radish in your area, that's okay too. You can omit this in your kimchi. I do think that the radish adds a nice level of heat and sweetness to the kimchi. So if you can't find it, please add this to your kimchi. I peeled the radish and now I'm going to cut it very finely into thin slices. And you can actually see my knife going through the cabbage, through the radish. I'm going to be doing the same thing here as I did with the carrots. Once I've finished cutting it into thin slices, I arrange them into a straight line, and then I cut them into matchsticks as well. Radish makes a really nice crunchy sound when you cut through it. I actually enjoy eating this raw, even though it's pretty spicy. It is a really fresh tasting vegetable. After finishing the radish, I'll move on to the green onions. Here I have 6. I'm going to just prepare them as well. First off, I cut off all the stems. Let me throw that away. And then I'm also going to chop off some of the bits at the end that might not look so great anymore. you're making kimchi the super traditional way, sometimes other vegetables are added as well. A Korean vegetable called minari, which unfortunately I don't know where to find where I'm living. But if you have the carrot, the radish, and the green onion, you can still make a really, really amazing kimchi. So I'm basing my kimchi recipe off recipes I saw on the internet, mostly from a YouTuber called Chi. She does really amazing Korean cooking videos. But the nice thing about kimchi is that you can, switch up the recipe and make it your own. After each 30 minutes that your cabbage is soaking in salt, you should just flip over your cabbage. This ensures that the salt spreads evenly. And here I'm going to do the same thing with my other pot. So the cabbage is at the bottom, I place on the top. I also flip the cabbage around so that we get a nice distribution of salt. So we're gonna keep letting that soak and flip it around about every 30 minutes. The next step is making a kind of porridge, which I know sounds weird, but this is actually a very important step in making kimchi. I'm putting 1.5 cups of water in a pot, and I'm going to switch on my stove and let the water heat up. I've tried making my kimchi without this step, without making the porridge, but it just isn't the same. It adds a really nice consistency to your kimchi brine. What I'm adding here is some sweet rice flour, and you can substitute this with regular all-purpose flour if you can't find sweet rice flour. I'm adding 1.5 tablespoons of this sweet rice flour. I'm also going to add brown sugar. I'm also adding 1.5 tablespoons of brown sugar. If you are using regular flour instead of sweet rice flour, I would recommend adding more sugar, since the sweet rice flour is kind of sweet. Maybe around 2.5 or 3 tablespoons of sugar should be good. I'm going to whisk this together and let it come to a boil and simmer for about 5 minutes. By this time you'll see that the consistency is a lot thicker and it's bubbling away nicely. Here you can see that it's kind of a goopy consistency, which is what we want. Remember to keep flipping your cabbage every 30 minutes, and you'll see that more water starts to collect at the bottom of your container. You can even scoop up some of this water and pour it over your cabbage. Next, let's start preparing the vegetables for the kimchi paste. I'm going to start with garlic, and I'm going to be using lots and lots of garlic for my kimchi. The amount of garlic you add is entirely up to you. I think I ended up with something like 13 cloves. I'm not sure why, it just looked like a good amount to me. But feel free to add as much garlic as you want. I like my kimchi to be quite garlicky. So now I'm going to peel the garlic. I cut off the stem and squish it with my knife, and then the skin should come off pretty easily. So just cut off the stem and squish. Once all the garlic has been peeled, I'm going to place them in my little hand blender this is a very useful tool for making the kimchi paste. Saves you a lot of time in mincing the ingredients. Moving on to the ginger, I'm going to cut off a pretty generous piece. Again, it's up to you to decide how much of the ginger you would like to add. I'm going to peel the ginger, and because my ginger is, quite a easy shape to work with, I can peel it with the knife quite easily. But if your ginger is like a funny shape, which it sometimes is, I found that using a teaspoon to peel the ginger works really, really well. You can get into all the little crevices. So now I'm going to just quarter this piece of ginger to make it easier for my blender. And lastly, I'm going to prepare the onion. I'm using half of this onion, and I'm just going to remove the skin. And just cut it into a few chunks to make it easier for my blender. Since the sound of the blender is not a very relaxing sound, I'm not going to show you how I blended them. I'm just going to move on to the assembling of the kimchi paste. I'm putting the minced garlic, ginger, and onion into a bowl, and I'm going to be adding this, the magic ingredient. This is Korean red chili pepper powder. In Korean, it's called gochu garu. So you can look for those letters when you're buying this hot pepper powder. Unfortunately, you cannot substitute this pepper powder for any other kind of chili flakes. It just doesn't have the same kind of flavor. This is the absolute essential ingredient for making the kimchi. Here I'm measuring out 1 cup, and for 2 Napa cabbages this should be plenty, but because I like mine kind of spicy, I'm adding another, I'd say 1/4 cup. I'm also going to be adding fish sauce. Now, fish sauce gives the kimchi its distinguishing, pungent flavor. And for me, it is quite essential in my kimchi recipe. I'm measuring out 1/2 cup. In Korea, there are many different variants of kimchi, and they all use different kinds of flavorings. Apart from fish sauce, oftentimes small fermented shrimp are used, sometimes raw fish or raw oysters, and these give all different kinds of kimchi flavors, and they are paired with different kinds of Korean meals. I myself am not a huge fan of the mega seafoody kimchi like the oyster ones. It's not my favorite, but 1/2 cup of fish sauce works well for me. As you can see, I also added the porridge that we made earlier, and this porridge is now completely cooled, and I am gently mixing all the ingredients together. So now that the kimchi has been sitting for about 3 hours, when I squish it, the stem part doesn't break. That's how you know that your kimchi is ready to be rinsed. And you need to rinse your cabbage very thoroughly to remove all of the excess salt, which isn't healthy and will make your kimchi really watery and just not that appetizing. So take your time in rinsing the kimchi, get in between all the leaves, rinsing the cabbage, sorry. And you should rinse them, I would say, at least 3 times to make sure that all of the salt has been removed. Once you're done, let your cabbage drain for, I would say, 20 or 30 minutes so that your kimchi is pretty dry, that your cabbage is pretty dry once you start assembling. Now it's time for the grand finale. I'm mixing the kimchi paste that we made with the vegetables that we prepared. And then, if you're squeamish about getting your hands dirty, then you can wear plastic cooking gloves for this. Don't use rubber gloves. Plastic is okay. But me, I'm not really concerned about that, so I'm getting my hands in there. And I'm mixing everything together. I actually found this really fun to do. Sort of reminds you of when you were a child and you're playing in the mud, making little mud cakes or whatever. So here I'm just combining all the ingredients very well. It makes a nice squishy sound. So now I'm going to take my first cabbage leaf and spread my paste all over, getting in between each of the leaves and making sure it all looks really red and saturated with paste and vegetables. As you can imagine, with all of these wonderful fresh ingredients, kimchi is super healthy and very good for you. Cabbage contains loads of fiber and is a known antioxidant. And with the garlic and ginger, it contains loads of vitamin A, vitamin B1 and 2, and vitamin C, which is good for your immune system. But most of all, because our kimchi is going to ferment in this plastic container, that fermentation and the probiotics that are formed is really, really good for your digestive health. And it's known to combat diabetes, cholesterol, and can even help you if you're overweight. So many people consider kimchi to be kind of a superfood. And I'm just going to keep coating my cabbage with my kimchi paste until I've completed them all. And you need to let your kimchi sit in your container for 1 to 4 days, and you can taste it each day, and you'll see that the flavor becomes more intense as it goes on. Once you're happy with the taste, place it in the refrigerator where you can keep it for up to 2 months. And remember to squish down on your kimchi to remove any excess air. So now your hands will probably look disgusting like mine. So after cleaning up yourself and cleaning up your workspace, you're done. Just place the lid on firmly and let your kimchi sit for up to 4 days until you're satisfied with the taste. You can, however, enjoy your kimchi right now. It's really good when it's fresh, and it's super crunchy and delicious. I hope you enjoyed watching me show you my kimchi recipe, and I hope you have a good